Hello everybody, welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of City Talk. This is the last episode in our four-part series about the season ahead. Today I am delighted to be joined by Erika Toomey. In part 2 then we'll have Colin Healy. So really looking forward to getting into today's episode. Welcome Erika.
Thanks very much, Paul.
No problem. So I got Erika on the show today just to kind of talk us through, I suppose, maybe your role with the club previously, but I suppose more importantly, your role now with the club and as COVID and the academy coordinator and stuff like that. You know, just kind of talking us through how COVID impacts the club on a daily basis and the impacts it has on teams and so on and so forth. But before we get into all that, just about, like, you're well known obviously throughout the club. You know, being a Forest member, being a board member, being an employee with the club previously, did the More Than the Club program. I'm now back again. I know your previous role was also kind of joint venture with the FAI, so you might kind of explain that to us a little bit. So yeah, maybe start off at your role, I suppose maybe your history with Cork City, and then how you kind of came to working with the club.
Yeah, I suppose they just can't get rid of me at this stage, Paul. Yeah, I started coming out to games, Jeannie, when I was 14. I won't calculate up how long ago that was. Just came out with a group from school and just got obsessed, I suppose, and came back and then started volunteering in my second season, selling programs, then writing academy roundups for the program when I was about 17, 18. And just volunteering over the years. And then in 2017, the FAI advertised the More Than a Club project, and they were looking for a coordinator. And when I read it at the time, I just felt this is perfect for me. So I went for it, thought it was an absolute long shot, really didn't think I was going to get it. And I did. And that I was here for about 20 months, I think it was, working on the More Than a Club project at the time. And just with the way things were going, the funding just didn't come through to extend the project. Unfortunately, Brexit meant that it only ended up being 18 months initially instead of 4 years. And then we were looking for more funding, but just with the timing, it wasn't great. And then, of course, COVID happened as well, which didn't help. Yeah. So I left briefly and then came back in last summer when COVID did hit. And I suppose there was a lot more work all of a sudden because all clubs needed a COVID compliance officer. So I came back in then at that stage.
Great, yeah. And just to bring even back before that, you were obviously a board member previously. So just give us a kind of a brief about that and how it was and how it went. So you were obviously well versed in how Forest worked and how the club ran. So you obviously had a lot of experience even coming into those roles.
Yeah, I joined Forest, I suppose, back in 2008, I think it was initially at the very beginning. So involved in all those early meetings in the old telecom club where we used to meet when things were not so great and we were trying to, I suppose, put something in place to secure the future of football of League of Ireland football in Cork. And then in 2012, I was just home a year. I'd been away for a year, came home in 2011, and in 2012, I suppose I was looking for something a little bit more to be doing, and ran for the board again. Kind of just put it out there to see would I get a chance on it, and I ended up being on the board from 2012 until 2015, I think it was. Yeah, so I served 3 years on the board. I was secretary for 2 of those years, and then just a normal board member for the 3rd year. Thankfully, gave some of the hard work away to someone else to do. But it was difficult enough being secretary because you're responsible for, I suppose, a business, and as a volunteer going in, you kind of maybe don't fully realise it until you're on that board of management, the actual responsibility that's involved. You're talking about people's livelihoods as well as running a football club. It is a business as well at the end of the day. So there's a lot of company law involved that maybe I wasn't too familiar with initially and had to learn really, really quickly. But that's the good thing about a trust like Forest. There is so much experience out there and people willing to help you and give you that guidance.
Yeah, I'm sure you were able to resonate with a lot of what Declan was saying last week about being a volunteer, kind of being on a board running a business. It's no easy feat. I'm sure about that.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a bit more streamlined now, to be very honest with you. Back then, right. we used to come in at 6 o'clock on a Monday evening, and it could be midnight by the time we get out from a board meeting. So it was a lot more hands-on, whereas now, it's still hands-on, but I think probably a bit more streamlined with the professional staff that are in the club.
Yeah, great. So take us back to the More Than the Club program. Obviously, that's something that's been kind of pushed within the league over the last number of years, and it's something that's kind of, I suppose, really needed and really wanted as well, to get the kind of League of Ireland clubs right into their communities, getting them working. Obviously, a lot of clubs don't have the resources and staff to kind of really push it out in the community. So as you said, it was unfortunate it didn't work out, but it's definitely something that there's an appetite there for, I believe.
Big time. And I think there's a lot of clubs that are doing a lot of stuff in their community, but again, it goes back to that word volunteer, and they're so dependent on volunteers to come forward. And a lot of the time with community work, sometimes you have to look for someone that's, I suppose, experienced in a specific area, especially if you want to hit targets and make it a real proper social impact. The thing about More Than a Club, I suppose, one of the good points of it was aiming to set up a social enterprise similar to the models that they have in the UK. So if you look at the UK, nearly every single club in the Football League has a community trust, and it operates in conjunction with the club, but it's a separate entity. So that was what the plan was here as part of More Than a Club, was to set up a social enterprise. So it would run separately to the club, so that any funds that it generated either through revenue or through grants would be kept separate from the football club. So anyone who was giving money to it knew it was going into community work. But again, it's just unfortunately timing. And I suppose in Ireland, while we do have social enterprises, it's not as easy to set up a social enterprise entity as it is in the UK, where they have community interest companies. You can set it up and it's automatically set up as a community interest company. Here in Ireland, you have to set up a company registered, or an actual registered company, and then either get charity aspect to it. So there's a little bit more involved at the time.
Yeah. And just kind of give us an example of some of the things that you were doing with the More Than a Club program. Obviously, I would have known being there today, but just for people who might have been aware of the exact work, I know you used to go to schools, you had the city skills, you had a lot going on.
Yeah, so there was a couple of programs that we had to deliver as part of the project and as part of the funding that the FAI got at the time. So one was a football numeracy program, which I think Arsenal would probably have the biggest program of that, really, if you were to look at a club across the water. And basically it's a double club. You go in, you do 45 minutes of football themed numeracy skills in the classroom, and then you take the kids out and you do a 45-minute football session. So it's like a football match with two halves, but they're doing maths, which obviously not everyone loves doing. But I suppose for us, we tried to make it really club orientated. So at the time when we were doing this, it was the beginning of 2018. City had just won the double, so we had we had a module around the double winning season, and they had to add up points, and City went on an unbeaten run for X amount of games. How many points did they accumulate in that period of time? And you're teaching them words then, like accumulate and stuff as well, which they're learning in class, but now they're putting into a real life scenario, I suppose. But to be very honest, the kids just kind of put up with us for that 45 minutes, but they wanted to get out on the pitch. So that was for 5th class students, and we ran a good few programs of that in schools in the city and also down in Bandon. We had a really good connection with a school in Bandon, Scoil Pádraig Naofa, and we ended up doing 3 or 4 programs down there with their 5th class boys over the couple of years. And then our secondary school program was called Run the Club. So the idea behind that is you're teaching kids about the business aspect of a football club. So we did modules on marketing and promotions. We did it on finances and just all different areas. So I know we had yourself lined up at one point to come in and chat to them as well. Unfortunately, it didn't work out at the time. But the whole point of it then was that the kids in that, it was for TY students, and the kids in the schools organised an event to raise funds for either charity or to raise funds for the school themselves. So both schools ended up running a soccer blitz, which was brilliant. And again, pre-COVID, so they were able to do that.
Yeah, because I know working with you in a couple of those things, and even there was a lot of players going out to schools just for visits, to have talk to the classes, bringing tickets out to the school kids to go to matches. A lot of stuff that people don't really see behind the scenes. So there was a lot going on a day-to-day basis, wasn't there? And I know there was a huge appetite for it back then when the teams, after winning the double and the cups, and the players had a big status and stuff like that. So it went down really well, didn't it, within the community?
It does, yes. And I'll be very honest with you, Paul. When you mentioned status there, yeah, that's obviously a big thing. There are always a certain handful of players at the clubs that kids will recognise instantly.
Yeah.
They don't really they don't really care.
Yeah.
They just think, oh my God, this person is a footballer, and that's all they want to know. And then you're kind of trying to push, he's a footballer and he's also in college, so education is important. But they're they just want, it's a footballer, it's a professional footballer. Yeah, what do you eat? That's
yeah. How much do you get paid? That's another one.
Yeah, that's actually. I remember Johnny Dunleavy when he was here. Used to go out on the visits to the schools all the time, and he would say, "Start off straight away. You can ask me any question you want. Don't ask me how much I get paid."
Yeah, it's always seemed to be a popular one. All right. So obviously, unfortunately, that came to an end. Then you left the club for I suppose what you call a brief period. Maybe it was a 12 months or so, and then you kind of came back on a voluntary basis as the COVID officer. And tell us how that evolved then.
Yeah, so I suppose when the leagues were restarting last summer, there was a requirement for a COVID compliance officer to be put in place. And look, again, a lot of clubs have that as a voluntary position. I was actually out of work at the time, so when I came in, I was doing it for all of the teams at the club, and we quickly realised there's actually a lot of work involved in it. You know, it's not just match day. You're pretty much here every day for training sessions, overseeing everything, just making sure that everything at the club, from office to out on the pitch to training rooms and dressing rooms, that everything is COVID compliant.
Yeah, and I suppose that role evolved then into a kind of a full-time role, which was great. And I know that everyone was delighted to see you back at the club, and you came back as an academy and a community coordinator, while also, I suppose, keeping up the you know, the COVID officer element of it as well. So just kind of, you know, like, I suppose, bring us through exactly what would be involved in a typical kind of week, a day, you know, how it works around the place. Obviously, again, I see it on a day-to-day basis, the work that goes into it, and there is a Trojan amount of work. But just for the people, you know, how strict and hard it is, because, you know, everyone around the place has COVID in their lives, whether it's their personal lives or it's their working life. But, you know, there's such a vast majority of people, I suppose, in a football club, between players, staff, or administration staff, and so on. It's a very difficult task to keep on top of, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it really is. And like, I think everyone is so aware now of what we should be doing and what we need to be doing. And to be fair to the lads, they're brilliant for it. But you do still need to remind people on a daily basis, because look, you know, it's easy for people to become complacent at times. You know, especially when you're in an environment that you're familiar with, and it's somewhere where you are every day. So for me, I suppose I come in first thing in the morning, come in before the lads, generally about 8:15. The lads start to come in then from around 8:30 onwards. And the first thing I do is meet them at the door and temperature check them. So they're not allowed into the building until they've had their temperature checked. And then I mark that down, so we have to make note of all the temperatures and keep it on file. Also then just reminding them about hand sanitizer inside the door. Again, it's stuff they do automatically, but I'm there to remind them just in case. Make sure that they have face coverings or face masks as well with them. We have some out in reception just in case anybody does forget, because it happens. Anyone forgets to bring a mask with them, or if we have, you know, a visitor from the FEI or something like that, there are spare masks there for people. So yeah, take their temperatures. And I also check with them. They have a health questionnaire that they need to fill in every morning before they come in. Yeah. Just a few basic questions. How are you feeling? Do you have a temperature? Do you have any symptoms? Have you been in close contact? Doesn't change from a day-to-day basis, but they fill it out every morning anyway. It takes about 30 seconds. So just need to make sure that they've done that. If they haven't, again, they have to fill that in before they're allowed to go into training. And then for the morning, it's just going around watching training, making sure everyone's in pods, that everyone is adhering to social distancing, which they are, to be fair. You have to keep everything outside at the moment. They are allowed to use the gym on an individual basis, so that happens then. So it's just around monitoring the timetable for the gym also.
Yeah, and I suppose the match days as well probably brings its own kind of implications, whether that's a home match or it's traveling to away matches and stuff like that. You know, there's a lot goes into kind of making sure everything stays COVID compliant, is there?
Yeah, no, so like, I'm always in contact with the COVID compliance officers of the club. So for this week, I would have been in contact with Ramblers early in the week. To be fair, they were on the ball and they were much first thing Monday morning. So it's just about telling them what our protocols are. I have a match day protocols document that I share with each club, which tells them the dressing room set up in Turner's Cross. So obviously we can't have everybody inside in one dressing room. So we have overflow areas in the boardroom and meeting rooms, for example. So everybody just needs to be aware of that before they come in. Masks are mandatory in all areas in Turner's Cross as well. So people for this season will be wearing masks at all time once they're inside in the ground. So that will be whether they're in standing around, whether they're, you know, on their way into the turnstiles, whether they're sitting in the stand. Everybody has to wear a mask at all times now, including the substitutes. So, you know, it's hard for people because, you know, it's hard to wear it all that time.
Yeah, thanks for that, Erika. So just to kind of move on, I suppose, as part of your title, obviously, as looking after the community work and stuff like that, obviously a very difficult area at the moment, because I know a lot of the club's community activity would be, you know, physically in the community, such as, you know, players going out to visit schools. You know, we did meet and greets in shopping centres at Christmas time. The players would generally visit the hospitals and stuff like that and bring gifts to the kids. This year we had to post them and stuff like that. So just kind of tell us, you know, is there any community stuff going on at the moment, or how is that?
Yeah, it's very difficult, to be honest, to be able, like you said, a lot of what we do is involved with going out into the community and being active outside camps and those school visits. So it's really about thinking outside the box. And obviously in pre-season, it's always that little bit difficult anyway, because there's so much focus on getting, you know, the men and women's teams ready for the start of the season. But we have a development officer here in Cork contacted me and asked, you know, could we get the lads and some of the female players involved in doing sessions online through Zoom with different community groups. So players like Gerard Morrissey, Danielle Burke, we had a few different, Katie McCarthy was there, I think we had Stephen Beattie on as well. So they all went in on different Wednesday afternoons for 30, 45 minutes and just spoke with the kids. And I suppose it's a real sign of the times that it's being done on Zoom, but at least it was that bit of connection and getting, you know, I suppose having that bit of a connection with the community and speaking to people. So the lads were, and the girls were able to chat about, you know, Alec Byrne, for example, was able to chat about how he's in UCC and balancing doing his college work at home remotely, but then coming to training in the morning. So he's getting that bit of outlet as well. So I think it was great for everyone involved just to have that bit of connection with the community again.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like, when I suppose restrictions allow and stuff like that, you know, the club, the players will be back out in the community, kind of, you know, and even things like summer camps, which involves a lot of community work as well, or you know, your kids' camps. It's all affected, really. Like, you know, it's very, like, as I said, the community work is very hands-on, which has been quite difficult at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think the lads will be starting to run from me as soon as restrictions start to ease, because they already do, to be fair. There's definitely some that know when they see me coming and I start saying, do you know how you're my favourite player? That's always a trigger going off in people's heads. Like this morning, for example, now we have the launch of the Big Rebel Sleep Out, which is a charity event that we've been involved in the last 4 years. And last year we had to, or Focus Ireland had to change it slightly where they did it remotely. And so we're launching it again this morning. And like that, you just ask the player, will you step in for photographs? No problem whatsoever. But again, it's the challenge of trying to do it socially distanced now and changing things up slightly. So we are still continuing to do stuff, but obviously the plans that are there, you know, are I would love to be delivering more. It's just about getting the right balance at the moment, particularly when we're at level 5, when we start to ease back a little bit and things start to open up slightly. I think people within the community will be a bit more comfortable as well. We're doing it, but at the moment the offer is there, you know, for any schools or youth groups, if they want to do any Zoom sessions, we're more than happy to facilitate it. I'll definitely find a player or two that'll be willing to do it.
Great stuff. Look, Erika, thanks very much for popping on today, and I suppose, look, best of luck in your own role for the coming season, because that role is a challenge in itself, and keeping everything kind of coordinated, you know, throughout all teams. I know it's difficult from the first team right down to the women's team and the academy teams. It's not an easy feat, kind of keeping all the COVID stuff in line and stuff like that. So well done, and best of luck with it, and thanks for coming on again today and sharing it with us.
Thanks very much, Paul. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So that brings the end to part 1 of episode 4, season 2. After the break, we'll be speaking to Colin Healy, so make sure you stay tuned. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 of City Talk. Delighted now to be joined by first team manager Colin Healy. Welcome, Colin. How are you?
Not too bad, Paul. Not too bad.
Good. Thanks for coming on the show today. I know by the time this goes out on Thursday, you'll have the Cove Ramblers game the next day, so I'm sure you're really looking forward to that. How's the mood in the camp?
No, it's been good. It's been good. Training's been good all week. We've had a good pre-season. We played some very good teams. Training's been going well, and there's a good atmosphere around the place at the moment.
Yeah, great stuff. And look, I suppose we'll get into all that, but what I wanted to do was kind of pick it up where we kind of spoke last, not too short of 12 months ago on City Talk as well. And when we chatted to yourself at that stage, you were the head of academy for the club. A lot has changed in within those 12 months, I suppose, in the outside world with COVID and everything like that, but also within the club. When you spoke to us then, you were kind of speaking that 2020 was the year you were kind of really after sinking your teeth into the head of academy role after coming in 2019. Did you find you were kind of just getting going in that role when things changed?
No, I was, and I said, listen, I really enjoyed doing the role in the academy. I said, listen, we had great coaches in there, and we had fantastic players as well inside the academy, and it was, and it says obviously when COVID hit, everybody taking a back step, and it's just it was difficult. It was difficult for the players, and it was difficult for the coaches then as well. But as I said, I really enjoyed my time there, and obviously with the first team, an opportunity came around to go in as the interim manager, and it's just probably an opportunity that I couldn't say no to.
Yeah, because when we did speak to you at that time, you had mentioned your growth for maybe managing in the future. You could probably say yourself that you probably didn't expect it to come around as fast as it did it?
No, it didn't. Listen, I always wanted to manage. Obviously, I always wanted to manage Cork City. As I said, listen, inside the academy, that was my role, and listen, I really enjoyed it. But you'd always keep an eye on the first team. I'd see how they're doing as well. As I said, the first team, they didn't have a great season. Obviously, then there was a change that the board had to make, and they asked me would I come in and take over. And listen, I was. It was difficult times at that time. So it was probably something that I couldn't say no to.
Yeah, because you probably look. I suppose it could have been not to the detriment, but it was an extremely difficult scenario for you to come into as kind of look. You'd never really managed a senior team before and stuff like that, and it was your first taste to senior management, professional management, and to come into that, look, the team were obviously on a really low point, struggling in the league. It was 5 games left, staring relegation in the face. Was that something that you might have had reservations coming into, or were you always kind of sure that you wanted to do it?
No, that was never the case. I always wanted to do it. As I said, I played under some fantastic managers. I've always, taken interest with coaching, even in my playing career. Looking at different coaches and what different training sessions that they used to do. I was involved with the Irish under-19s for 2 or 3 years under Tom Mona, and I got some fantastic experience working under Tom and his staff. So when the opportunity came around, I said it there previously, I couldn't say no to it. As I said, with Cork City came calling and said, listen, could you come in and take over the end of the season? I wasn't going to say no to them. Yeah,
so you came in under a kind of interim role, really. It just kind of, I suppose, I'm guessing that the thought behind the club was hopefully that maybe you could come in and, it was kind of give the players a boost and a lift, and which I did, but I think maybe it was just maybe too little too late. But what were your kind of thoughts at that time when you were coming in, obviously, to a struggling team? Was it just to kind of get things going to an extent again, or, how was that kind of fight really when you came into the job?
But listen, it was difficult. We had to play against some difficult teams. We were away to Bows, and then we were home to Dundalk. So listen, I knew what I was coming into, but it's what I needed to get from the players is that I needed to, to get the work rate. I needed to listen people that, as I said, as a Cork City fan, as a player, as a coach, is that when you put on the jersey, you give everything, and that's all I asked from the players. And I thought when we had the 5 games, I thought that's what I got from them, but it just, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, and I suppose, as the the head of academy, you're not probably involved in the first team on a day-to-day basis, or the trainings and the match preparation and stuff like that. Did some stuff surprise you when you did go in there on a full-time basis? Did some of the players surprise you? Were you surprised that we were in the position we were in, or were you kind of looking at it saying, look, probably deserve to be where we were?
I mean, listen, as I said, head of the academy, I'd be in most days anyway, and I'd always see the training sessions. it was difficult for them. You know, the results didn't go their way. You know, there were some good players there, but you know, when confidence is down, it's very hard to, you know, it's very hard to, you know, get the points on the board. You know, and you know, when I came in and I took over, I could see that, and that was the first thing that we needed to do. We need to probably change around the training sessions, get a small bit of enjoyment back into the players. But as I said, it was difficult in the five games. Did I enjoy coming in coaching? Yes, I did. But it's just unfortunate that we just couldn't keep the team up.
Yeah, and how did you find the kind of change from management of the under-19s previously into kind of a first team manager role, and you know, because there is a lot that goes with it that would, I suppose, go with the 19s role, whether it be, you know, media commitments, you know, just stuff around the club, and you know, dealing with a full professional setup. Was that something that you were surprised at, or you know, the workload that's involved in it?
No, it's not, because listen, I've been around it since I've been young, since a younger age, like, you know, so I've been full-time football for probably the best 20 years. So I know what goes on. I suppose with the difference between under-19s academy football and first team football is ruthless.
Yeah.
You know, so it as I said, with academy it's still about developing players, getting them ready for the first team, but first team football is about results, putting points on the board, and you know, if players aren't doing it, then you know it's one player in, another player out. You know, that's just the way it is. Like.
Yeah. So look, obviously we all know the way things went. It didn't work out in the end, and I suppose your own future was uncertain coming towards the end of the year. I know there was a lot of stuff with it going on in the club off the field. You know, with the Grovemore situation and the possible takeover and stuff like that. But when that kind of didn't materialise in the off season, you know, you stepped in then as the full-time first team manager. Was that a kind of, I know you said that you couldn't turn down the opportunity, but obviously, you know, you were moving from an head of academy role, which I wouldn't say is a comfortable role, but I suppose there's probably, you know, known to be a bit more longevity in a role like that than there would be as a first team manager. Did that kind of make you think twice about taking the role?
No, I never did. As I said, listen, I did the academy for 2 or 3 years and I really enjoyed it. But probably the next step then for me was obviously being first team manager.
Yeah.
Obviously. And as I said, when the board came to me and asked me would I do it, yeah, listen, I was delighted to you know, obviously to get the opportunity to go and manage Cork City first team. So it's something that I couldn't say no to.
Yeah, so coming into the role then, I think it was around the start of December, probably a little bit behind the kind of the rest of the league in regards to kind of making signings, and you know, there was players getting swept up by other clubs and rival clubs making signings as well. Did you find that you had a lot of work to do kind of off the bat to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, we did. You know, as I say, you see a lot of clubs doing the work early doors, and obviously you're probably thinking that you're going to miss out on players here and there, but you know, we were in contact with players. You know, we were in contact with players probably without G knowing, like so. So we know we had, like, you know, so it's I know we did a work, and I said, listen, we were lucky to keep you know, the majority of last year's group. I suppose it's really important that we stayed full time as well, which is you know, which will probably give us a better chance of doing well this year. You know, so it's and the players that we brought in as well. You know, it's so we put a good squad together for the season.
Yeah, and I suppose a lot of these players that would have signed back for this season, I know a lot of them would have been made up of academy players that you would have worked in the past. But outside of that, there was a lot of players that you'd kind of signed up to the club again. Was that because they had made an impression on you towards the end of the season, going into this year? You know, like the likes of, say, Dylan McGlade, who you wouldn't have managed before, and players like that. Had they made an impression towards the end of the year to say, look, you know, I want to work with these guys again?
Yeah, no, definitely. As I said, I had a short space of time in it, you know, in that 5 games, you know, so I was always, you know, players that I worked with, I know what they can do. You know, and I said with Dylan, you know, I know what he can do, you know, and I'd like to think that if I work long with him, I can prove him as a player, and that's just not Dylan, it's just with the rest of the squad as well. A lot of players come through the academy and know what they can do, and it's just, there's a lot more to come from these players, you know, so even in working full time with them will, you know, give me more time to develop them as players and as people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think there was a lot of signings, maybe 13, 14 signings made within the space, I think, 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, which was phenomenal work. But along with signing up the academy players that you would have worked for before, you know, retaining players like club captain Garrod Morrissey, getting Stephen Beatty back, you know, the likes of Mark McNulty, very key players really, like, you know, to have a good mix within the squad with a lot of younger players. Would that be the case?
No, it was, and you know, it's important to, you know, like Garrod, you know, he's a Cork lad. He's been at the club from a younger age. Listen, he's had a fantastic career. He's our club captain this year, and rightly so. He's you know, for him to come back, you know, come back this year, you know, a lot of clubs were probably interested in Garrod. He could have went to any club in the country, any club. He's that good. He's come back. It just shows the hunger and the desire that he has, that he wants the club to do well. And it's the same with Beats. Beats wanted to come back. Beats didn't want to go anywhere else. He wanted to come back to Cork, and it shows the kind of player and the kind of character that he is. And with Nults as well, Nults, isn't he? So Nults is a character around the place, and you know, we need people like that. You know, we come into training that, yeah, you take it serious on the training pitch, but you got to have a bit of enjoyment around the training ground as well. You got to have that good atmosphere, and you can't take things too seriously, because if you take it too seriously, you don't enjoy it. And you know, yes, we take things seriously on the training pitch in your team meetings and all that kind of stuff, but outside too, we like the lads to have a bit of crack, a bit of banter around the place. It's good for everybody.
Yeah, because even Garrod mentioned it in his interview yesterday with the pre-match press conference for the Cove game, that there was a real, you know, he really felt the sense of, you know, you were working hard. There's a great atmosphere around the place. There's a great buzz. Cove is the first game. Everything seems to be pointing the right direction. I know yourself and a lot of the club staff also did a lot of work improving the place around the training ground and so on and so forth, and putting a lot of even more professional measures in place with the gym. I know you have the tech ball station set up for the players for the bit of, you know, leisure activity. There seems to be a lot going in the right direction. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, no, I think, you know, it's the most important thing is that these lads, when they come to train, they enjoy themselves. You know, as I said, we put the tech ball table in down the back room for them, and they play their 1v1s, their 2v2s, and they have a bit of crack, they have a bit of banter down there, so which is good. You have the gym, and it's a fantastic gym there now, you know, with the equipment that we have, and we have everything there that they need. We put in a new team room, which is fantastic, and obviously, you know, it's a player where the players can go and they can have their lunch. It's great, and everybody's in together. The coaches are in around as well, so we're all in together. So there's a great atmosphere at the moment in the club.
Yeah, you could definitely, for myself, you could sense it around the place on a day-to-day basis. There's a real buzz and you know, I think excitement for the season ahead, and a lot of positivity, which is, you know, I think can only bode well for the season ahead.
Yeah, no, listen, definitely. Listen, once the players are happy and once they're training well, and you know, they've got a good attitude, then we can't ask any more from them.
Yeah, and I suppose let's get down to kind of pre-season then, and the work that you've been doing. I know that you've been working very hard on a daily basis, and with the games, particularly what stood out to me with the games, you know, you picked some really tough games. Like, you know, you didn't kind of go for some easy layovers for your pre-season. You went for some really, like, you know, Pats, Rovers, Finn Harps, Waterford as well. You know, all games that you were really going to be up against. Is that something that you were conscious of when you were kind of planning out pre-season?
No, I think in like it was a short pre-season, so you know, we could only play, it was 4 games that we played, so for me, and obviously sitting down with Cots and with Nults as well, and say in the coaching staff, is that we wanted to play against good opposition. So and with Pats is that there's going to be sometimes you don't have the ball, and it's just different ways of defending, and then when we get it and how we're going to break them down. So it was the games that we got were very good, and we took an awful lot out of them.
Yeah, so the first 2 games, I suppose, against Pats and Rovers, you know, like you said, 2 teams that are kind of notorious for having a lot of the ball. So were those 2 games kind of working on your shape and work rate and getting minutes into the legs, whereas then the Waterford game came, a team that's probably not too far off your own level, I suppose, that you could really kind of impose your own game on that then?
No, I suppose with the Pats game and the Rovers game, it was good. It was probably good for fitness levels. As you said, listen, you know, Pats and Rovers, they can keep the ball very well. You know, obviously you got to be disciplined. You got to keep a good team shape. And obviously just going to be a lot of running without the ball. So it was one there. Obviously your stats and fitness levels, you know, we came from the strength and conditioning coaches was very, very good. Probably the Waterford game was a small bit different. We probably had a lot more possession than Waterford, and it was good. It was just probably a different game for the lads. So it's and obviously the lads put on a very good performance.
Yeah, and I was at the Finn Harps game myself. Even though that was a 1-0 defeat, it probably wasn't, you know, deserved. Probably maybe a draw in that game, but it was a bit of a rough day, you know, gale of wind, and you know the pitch wasn't great. But it was another good test for you, wasn't it?
No, it was. And listen, Finn Harps are a very difficult team to play against.
Yeah.
You know, they can be direct. As I said, they played 2 different systems on the day. So it was a good game for us, and it was, as I said, it's more minutes into the players' legs, and it was a good run up for us, and it's put us in good state for the start of the season.
And you know, just kind of speaking, touching on the squad for a minute, along with keeping a lot of core team from last year, as I said, and with the younger players mixed into that, we've also made some positive signings as well. You know, there's Paul Hunt, George Heaven, Jonas Hackelen, Jack Baxter, Jamie Wynn, Stephen Beathy. You know, we've added some really good quality into the squad. How have they blended in so far?
Well, they've been fine. They've been fine. We've added, as you said, the players that we have there. We've got Gordon Walker in as well. You know, so it's some good lads, and they're good in the dressing room, which is so important. They fitted in very quickly, and even in the pre-season games they've done very well. But it's there'll be a different game now Friday night from, but it's probably one that they're all looking forward to.
Yeah, I suppose before I move on to the Cove game, what is the kind of overall feeling within the management and the players? What's the kind of the goals for the season? Have you set yourselves goals? Is there a kind of minimum ambition that you're looking for the season?
No, there's not really. There is just probably, you know that. You know, I just want a good attitude and boys to be good professionals around the place, to train properly, to look after themselves, and when they go and play for Cork City, that like not only they're representing the club, they're representing themselves and their family, is that they go and give everything. And once we get that, I think we'll be okay, Paul. And I just want full commitment from everybody, and everybody's got a good attitude. They train well, and I think everything then will be okay after that.
Yeah, you think the results will follow if everything is kind of
done right? I hope that's the plan.
Of course. Let's moving on to the game on Friday night. I know you touched it in your press conference yesterday. Coming up against your old foe, Stewie Ashton. You know Stewie well from. I think you would have played here when he was the kind of, I suppose, like the head of the academy that time, and you know, obviously he stepped into the interim manager's role when you were playing. So you know Stewie very well, and Cove have done really well under Stewie the last couple of years. So I'm sure you're expecting a tough test.
Yeah, no, it is. As I said, listen, I know Stewie well. As I said, I played under him. He's been here in the academy in Cork City for so many years. As he's went down to Cove, he's done a fantastic job down in Cove. Yeah, I know. Obviously, I know the way his teams play. You know, they'll be organised. You know, and he's his team that they're well coached. And any team against any game against Cove is always difficult. I found that over the years as a player, even inside the academy, playing against Cove, it's always a difficult game. And listen, our boys, we've told them that, so it will be a difficult game Friday night.
Yeah, because I think even in football at any level, and even over the years, even last weekend with the Premier Division starting off, the first game of the season is always kind of it's really about getting a positive result, isn't it? You know, it's everyone is kind of on an even keel, and it's kind of dog eat dog. It's always about just kind of getting out with something positive, isn't it? And I'm sure it'll be no different on Friday night.
That's it. As I said, listen, that's it. That's what we're going for the 3 points, and hopefully we can get that Friday night. As I said, listen, if we can put on a good performance, get 3 points, then that'll be fantastic. But it will be difficult.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. So thank you, Colin, for that, and I suppose best luck to yourself and the management and the players for the season ahead. We just have a couple of questions from the fans before we leave you go, if you don't mind. The first question came in there from Enin Boudair. Do you feel satisfied with the team you have at the moment? I suppose, are you looking to strengthen any more, bring anyone else in, or are you kind of content with what you have?
No, not at the moment. I'm happy with the players that we have, and the new players that we brought in, and the lads that we kept from last year. There's a good group. There's a good group here at the moment. They're training well, and as I said, there's a good atmosphere around the training ground. So I'm happy with the players that we brought in at the moment. Yeah.
Another question there from John O'Sullivan. What is the difference between playing and managing for Cork City Football Club?
Playing's a lot easier because you can just you don't have to talk to anybody. You can go and you can go. So it's managing. There's a lot more. Managing a lot more. Sometimes you're in it a small bit earlier and you go home a small bit later. You train and you can just turn up and go home.
Absolutely.
So no, it is with the playing. It's just like it's we all love playing. We all love playing. It's the best. I don't think anything can replace it. Probably the next best thing is probably managing it. Yeah. But it's I am enjoying the coaching side of it, but the football side is probably the best one. But it's different. Longer days in coaching, definitely. More probably shorter days in soccer when you're out there playing. When you can get home as quick as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose, what are your short and long-term goals for the club? Question there from Bob.
To get the club promoted, get them back to where they were. That's the goal. I think that's the goal from everybody inside the club. That's what we need to do. Is that this club is big. This club is too big to be in the first division. Okay, things weren't done rightly last year, and obviously that's where we got relegated. It's up to us now to, get this club back into the Premiership as the Premier Division as quick as we can.
Yeah, short and sweet, but straight to the point. Thanks for that. I suppose, look, another question there from Harry Graydon. A word of advice for young players at Cork City, or not even at Cork City, around Cork or around Munster or around Ireland, trying to come through the ranks and break into the first team. What are the key points you think that players need to work on, need to have to make it at the first team level?
I suppose in the academy for the younger players, it's your attitude. Listen, we all have the talent. It's your attitude. It's how you train, how you prepare from when you're away from training, and what you eat and what time you go to bed at. It's about how good of a professional you can be. I know obviously these lads, obviously they're not professionals, but you got to think, like, you got to have the mindset of being a professional. Is that it's everything is just dedicated towards soccer. And along the way, then obviously you need good coaches as well, and obviously it's obviously they help you as well going forward as well. But it's probably, I think the big thing for me is that whatever it's your attitude, is that how you conduct yourself on and off the pitch.
Great stuff. Great, some advice there for younger players, I think. And the final question there: are you willing to come on in the 90th minute if we are 1-0 down and we have a corner kick? I think that one's referring to your bicycle kick, maybe. Do you reckon you still have it in the locker?
No chance.
Good question there from Sean O'Donnell.
I joined in training there the other day, and probably lasted about 5 minutes. The boys were telling me to get back out.
I'm sure that's not the case. But look, Colin, thanks again for joining us, and really best of luck to yourself, the staff, and all the players and everyone involved. Not just on Friday night, for the whole season. And look, let's hope it's a more of a positive one than it has been over the last few years, and I'm sure it will.
Okay, thanks very much, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks again. So that brings an end to episode 4 of season 2. That's the last episode in the season. We'll be back again shortly with season 3. We've a very exciting season coming up with that one. Thanks to our sponsors throughout the series. And this was all brought to you in association with Red FM. Thanks to Aaron Howie, who produced all the episodes. So yeah, again, looking forward to the season ahead. Make sure you buy a Cork City FC season card on ccfc.ie. Thanks again to everyone, and we'll be back again soon. Thank you very much.